A country adrift, Venezuela in crisis. Venezuela, a nation once brimming with promise and prosperity, now teeters on the precipice of despair. The echoes of its vibrant past are now overshadowed by the grim reality of today. Years of mismanagement, corruption, and political turmoil have plunged this once wealthy South American nation into an abyss of hardship. The political landscape is marred by unrest and uncertainty. The vibrant tapestry of Venezuelan life has been torn asunder, leaving behind a stark landscape of poverty, scarcity, and fear. Streets that once buzzed with life now stand eerily silent, leaving behind a stark landscape of poverty, scarcity, and fear. The struggle for basic necessities has become a daily ordeal for many. For millions, the daily reality is a relentless struggle for survival. Long lines for food and medicine are now a common sight. Empty stomachs, barren pharmacies, and the constant threat of violence have become the norm. The scarcity of essential goods has led to widespread desperation. The dreams of a brighter future have been shattered, replaced by a desperate fight to make it through each day. The hope that once filled the hearts of many has been replaced by a sense of hopelessness, replaced by a desperate fight to make it through each day. Families now face the harsh reality of making do with less. This is the story of Venezuela's demise, a cautionary tale of how quickly a nation can crumble when its leaders prioritize power over the well-being of its people. The contrast between past prosperity and present despair is stark. A cautionary tale of how quickly a nation can crumble when its leaders prioritize power over the well-being of its people. The cries for change echo through the streets. It is a story of resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity, of communities coming together to support one another, of families torn apart by desperation, forced to make heart-wrenching decisions to seek a better life elsewhere, and of a nation yearning for a return to normalcy. Amidst the chaos, there remains a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. The iron grip politics and economic collapse. At the heart of Venezuela's woes lies a toxic cocktail of political repression and economic mismanagement. The once thriving oil industry, the lifeblood of the nation's economy, has been brought to its knees by corruption, incompetence, and a crippling lack of investment. The government's socialist policies, while well-intentioned, have proven disastrous in practice. Price controls, currency manipulation, and the expropriation of private businesses have created widespread shortages, hyperinflation, and economic paralysis. The ruling party, clinging to power through increasingly authoritarian means, has stifled dissent, muzzled the press, and rigged elections to maintain its grip on the country. Opposition leaders have been jailed, exiled, or silenced, leaving the Venezuelan people with little recourse against their increasingly desperate plight. The crushing weight of poverty, a nation on the brink. The streets of Venezuela tell a harrowing tale of despair and hopelessness. The economic meltdown has had a devastating impact on the lives of ordinary Venezuelans. Long food lines and empty store shelves are now a common sight. Once a middle-income country with a relatively high standard of living, Venezuela is now mired in poverty. The stark contrast between past prosperity and present destitution is heart-wrenching. A staggering 95% of the population lives below the poverty line, struggling to afford even the most basic necessities. Families are forced to make impossible choices every day. The once bustling streets of Caracas, once a symbol of Venezuela's prosperity, are now haunted by the specters of hunger and desperation. The vibrancy of the city has been replaced by a haunting silence. Malnourished children beg for scraps, families scavenge through garbage dumps for food, and the elderly collapse from exhaustion, their meager pensions rendered worthless by hyperinflation. The human cost of this crisis is immeasurable. The social fabric of the nation is fraying at the seams as desperation fuels crime, violence, and social unrest. Protests and violent clashes have become a daily occurrence. Doctors and nurses, their salaries decimated by inflation, are fleeing the country in droves, leaving hospitals critically understaffed and ill-equipped to deal with the growing health crisis. The healthcare system is on the verge of collapse. Section 4, Empty Plates and Empty Clinics, the struggle for basic needs. For many Venezuelans, the daily search for food and medicine has become an all-consuming ordeal. Supermarket shelves are bare, their once abundant stocks depleted by a combination of price controls, hoarding, and the government's inability to import essential goods. Those lucky enough to find food often face exorbitant prices, their salaries rendered meaningless by hyperinflation. Basic staples like rice, beans, and cooking oil have become luxury items, out of reach for many. The situation is even more dire in the healthcare system. Hospitals, lacking even the most basic supplies, have become places of last resort. Patients are forced to bring their own medicine, bandages, and even surgical gloves. Chronic shortages of antibiotics, painkillers, and other essential drugs have led to a resurgence of preventable diseases and a sharp increase in mortality rates. Section 5. Crumbling foundations. Life beyond the city's limits. While the crisis is most visible in Venezuela's major cities, the situation in rural areas is equally dire. Years of neglect and underinvestment have left the countryside with crumbling infrastructure, limited access to basic services, and dwindling economic opportunities. Farmers, once the backbone of the Venezuelan economy, struggle to produce crops due to a lack of fertilizer, seeds, and equipment. Many have been forced to abandon their land, fleeing to the cities in search of work and a chance at survival. Those who remain in rural areas face a daily struggle for survival. Power outages are frequent, clean water is scarce, and access to healthcare is limited. Schools lack basic supplies, and teachers, their salaries decimated by inflation, are often forced to work second jobs to make ends meet. Section 6. Fear in the shadows, the rise of lawlessness. As poverty and desperation grip the nation, Venezuela has witnessed a dramatic surge in crime. Once considered relatively safe, Caracas now ranks among the most dangerous cities in the world. Violent crime, fueled by a toxic mix of poverty, unemployment, and the proliferation of firearms, has become a daily threat. Murders, robberies, and kidnappings are commonplace, leaving citizens living in a constant state of fear. The police, demoralized, underpaid, and ill-equipped, are often unable or unwilling to respond effectively to the rising tide of lawlessness. Many citizens have resorted to taking the law into their own hands, forming vigilante groups to protect their communities. Section 7. Exodus, fleeing a nation in despair. Faced with unimaginable hardship and a bleak future, millions of Venezuelans have made the agonizing decision to flee their homeland. The economic collapse, political instability, and widespread violence have left them with little choice but to seek a better life elsewhere. This mass exodus, one of the largest in recent history, has seen an estimated 7 million people leave Venezuela since 2015, seeking refuge in neighboring countries and beyond. Many have traveled on foot, enduring harsh conditions and uncertain futures. The exodus has had a devastating impact on Venezuela, draining the country of its skilled workforce, exacerbating the economic crisis, and tearing families apart. Entire communities have been left desolate, with businesses shuttered and streets eerily empty. Those who remain face an uncertain future, trapped in a cycle of poverty, violence, and despair. The lack of basic necessities, such as food and medicine, has made daily life a struggle for survival. Despite the challenges, the Venezuelan people have shown remarkable resilience and determination in the face of adversity. Communities have come together to support one another, finding strength in unity and solidarity. They continue to hope for a brighter future, for a return to the days when their country was a beacon of prosperity and hope. The spirit of resistance and the desire for change remain strong. The road to recovery will be long and arduous, but the spirit of the Venezuelan people remains unbroken. Their unwavering hope and determination will be the driving force in rebuilding their nation.